and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
Yeah. We are back at the end of the week with our end of the week Geek Buddies show. You know, we did one earlier this week talking about The Last of Us, having a fun time reviewing that. But this episode's going to be an interesting episode. We got a couple of trailers to get into for sure to talk about, but we got some real deep stuff to explore in the Ryan Coogler Sinners situation. There's a lot of controversies going on, a lot of commentaries about how it's being covered, a lot of commentaries on how whether it's the end of Hollywood with the deal that Ryan Coogler makes. So there's a lot that's been going around the film Sinners. And we've got our spoiler review of the first 3 episodes of Andor. So it'll be a 3-topic show because we've got a lot to get into just within those 3 topics. So that's how it's going to go. We should introduce ourselves, though. First, I am John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you can see me on 2 episodes of The Pit right now on Max.
On Max, that's for sure. And a lot going on there. All right, so to start off, let's get into it. This is what we're going to do here. We're going to talk about the situation going on with Sinners. It's certainly something that a lot of us within our Geek Buddies text chains have been having conversations about with everything that's going on with Ryan Coogler's Sinners. The initial situation that people started getting upset about was how Ryan Coogler's Sinners was being covered by trades like Variety and the New York Times and other, where they were making all of these qualifiers for a very positive opening weekend for Sinners. 60 million overall, 45 million here domestically, but there were all of these qualifiers thrown in about like, well, it's performing, but it needs to perform this one. It needs to make $300 million or $175 million. There was a lot of controversy around that. And then just to add on to that, there was also an article from Vulture explaining the deal that Ryan Coogler landed with Warner Brothers through DeLuca and Abdi, Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, in order to be able to control or own the rights to Sinners in 25 years. Also got his money paid before the film even turned a profit. And so there's a lot of controversy around that. People were saying, well, is this the death of Hollywood? Even though it came out later that quite a few directors, at least, in 5, I guess, have had this deal in the past, including Quentin Tarantino and Mel Gibson for Passion of the Christ. So, Michael, we hear all of these controversies. You hear all of this stuff going on. What are your thoughts on the way it's being covered? Then what are your thoughts on these articles that are coming out trying to paint this film as the end of Hollywood, possibly?
It's weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, it is. Because, like, Ryan Coogler is, on any measurement, a massively successful director.
100%.
He hasn't failed yet. The biggest failure he had, and we talked about this in our Sinners review, the biggest fail he's had would be sort of, I guess, the not overwhelming reception to Wakanda Forever. And as we talked about, there's a lot of asterisks next to that, given Chadwick Boseman and a bunch of other things. So he's done really, really well. As many people have already pointed out, when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, cost more money to make, made less money than Sinners, and everybody was like, this is an unabashed success. Quentin Tarantino does it again. Sinners comes out, cost less to make, makes a little bit more money, and everyone's like, great job, Ryan Coogler. I don't know if it's going to make money, though. We'll have to see. So there does seem to be this, like, what's the real difference here? A lot of people think they can tell what the difference is. It's pretty clear. But I do think, there are other qualifiers to this. Like, a lot of people say, sure, Coogler's been successful and his movies have made a ton of money, but 3 of those movies are tied to massive franchises. 2 of them are Marvel movies, and one of them is Creed, which is a Rocky movie. So did Ryan Coogler do a great job, or did people just go see these movies because they love Rocky and Marvel? And so people are trying to not give him full credit for that and say, well, Tarantino, everybody goes like, they're all original. So they're saying that. But across the board, like, there's all these qualifiers being thrown around. And I guess what I keep coming back to is like, why you got to qualify? We talked about this again a little bit at the beginning of our Sinners review, but like, sure, Black Panther is a Marvel movie, but Black Panther is a Marvel movie that far exceeded anyone's expectations, including Marvel and Disney, about how it did its opening weekend, how it was received, like just the sheer global box office of Black Panther. It did huge.
Yeah.
Sure, Creed is a Rocky movie, but it's not a typical sequel, and it performed way better than the last couple Rocky movies did.
Yeah.
So you got to go, well, that's probably the director. So Ryan Coogler did all of this stuff. It's amazing. And the qualifiers just seem odd. And again, a lot of people are pointing out the obvious difference here. And there is something to that. Like, I was listening to one podcast and somebody was going on about, well, the issue here is really global box office. And we know that globally there's certain markets like China that traditionally don't embrace movies about people of color as much. But then somebody else said that that's like the common thinking in Hollywood, and it's actually not true if you look at the numbers. So on that front, I do think it's really weird that there's all these qualifiers when you're just like, look, Sinners did great for a R-rated horror movie. The end. Right. We'll see is it going to make its money back? We'll see. But based on the word of mouth and the way that people are responding to it, I think it will. The other thing, this whole Coogler's deal is going to ruin Hollywood, is just stupid. Like you said, other people have deals similar to this, and this isn't a common deal. There's so many things that made this specific. One of them is Warner Brothers during the pandemic fucked up completely and burned every fucking bridge in the world with the way that they handled putting things out on streaming and not talking to creators. So a big part of the Ryan Coogler deal was, let's get some creative goodwill back. Yeah. Secondly, even Ryan Coogler said he's not going to ask for the rights to, it's not like he's going to go now say he wants the rights to Black Panther 3. Like, this was a really personal, as he has said, this was a very personal movie about Black ownership. And he felt that he wanted that movie to be owned by him one day. He's not going to ask for it all the time. And there's a bunch of directors out there that could ask for it, and the studio can just say no. Like, he was in a really unique position. Warner Brothers was in a really unique position, and it was what it was. If you have the leverage, if you're Steven Spielberg and you just made Jurassic Park and you go make another movie, you can ask for whatever you want. Ryan Coogler, given his track record, came in and he got to ask for whatever he wanted. And I just think that that's more the exception than the rule. The idea that this is all of a sudden going to become the norm in Hollywood and every director is going to own the rights to every, like, that would be like saying because George Lucas asked for the toy rights to Star Wars in 1977, every director got the toy rights for every movie they made. And some directors do, but you know, not everybody does. Like, so I just think it's a lot of hand wringing and freaking out about, and you know, you can't sidestep the fact that it is about a very successful Black director who also happens to have made a career of movies that are very much about Blackness. Yeah. And Sinners, more than any, is just about Blackness. And the fact that people jump on this and be like, well, it was good, but you just can't deny sort of the tonal shift there compared to other similar directors in similar positions who are not Black.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, Shannon, because it feels like a rinse and repeat from the late 1980s into the 90s with Spike Lee. The same thing. Every time Spike Lee had a hit or did something really positive with his movies, there was always this kind of pushback. There was this kind of like groundswell of anger or finding ways to poke holes in it. And here we have it again with another prominent young filmmaker who is like just, you know, having success after success, except for, you know, Black Panther 2, you can argue quality, whatever, but overall, very successful.
But it was a success.
Yes, it was a success overall. Very
first
successful.
first acting Oscar nomination for a Marvel movie.
It's true. Yes. Again, just success on a lot of levels overall. And so, but you're seeing the pushback, Shannon. You're seeing these controversies popping up. Last night on the return of Spill the Tequila, Winston A. Marshall and I talked about how some members of the Latino community are upset because they weren't represented in Sinners, even though there was a tamale store in the movie. So there's something about this movie that is really causing a lot of reactions from people from all quadrants of Hollywood. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, to me, this is kind of the definition of goalpost moving, that, you know, you made the comparison with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I think their budgets were about the same. If maybe Hollywood was a little higher, and one they did about the same, and one was heralded as a success, and the other was success with an asterisk.
Right.
Look, I mean, in terms of the deal that he made, look, when you have as solid a track record as he does, Warner Brothers agreed to that deal because that's how badly they wanted to be in business with Ryan Coogler.
Right.
And you can't discount that. I mean, the guy's batting 1,000 right now. I mean, even looking at Fruitvale Station, his first feature, that movie cost under $1 million. It ended up making around 17 or 18 million. So, and he is only just upped this with each new film. I mean, I know people can talk about Rocky. I mean, Rocky Balboa came out in 2007, I think, and it was sort of like, oh man, that was a nice send off to that character because the last movie was real bad. He injected life into that franchise, and that franchise has gone on to do incredibly well. So when you have a track record like he does, you can ask for certain things. And the studio doesn't have to say yes. But again, that's how badly Warner Brothers wanted to be in business with Ryan Coogler. They said yes. And again, if it's any indication based off of the theater that I was in, this movie's going to have legs. Like it's going to have a solid 2 weeks before the summer movies start. And even then, it seems like the type of film that people are going to go back to. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see sort of that second weekend box office receipts, what it's going to be, how big the drop was. But at the end of the day, like the fact that this is a controversy is just kind of crazy. I mean, anytime a movie comes out, an original movie comes out and does as well as this did, this should be celebrated.
Yes.
And it's just very frustrating that instead of heralding this accomplishment, you put a microscope over it and be like, well, what really went into this? And it's just kind of frustrating because this is a fantastic film made by a director who is under 40. Like this guy has a very long career ahead of him. So it's like, it's kind of baffling that people are raising red flags where there is no red flag to be raised.
Let me ask you guys a question. And
let me put something in context. Hold your question for just a second, Mike. Real quick, just to add context to what Shannon said. According to Blacklist founder Franklin Leonard, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood made 10% less at the domestic box office on 10% more theaters pre-pandemic at the same budget with a similar deal structure. And I love the fact that Ben Stiller, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Christian Shaw, these are white actors, white celebrities, white performers coming out and calling out this Variety article for the way it was covering this story. That's important. And I think what you hit on, Shannon, and we'll get to Michael's question here next, but what you hit on, Shannon, is so important. This is a time, even this week, Steven Soderbergh came out and said, the middle movies are dead. Original movies aren't. I got to go to streaming because Black Bag just completely failed and it got all these great reviews. And these are the kinds of movies like Sinners, these wholly original movies, and just kiss my ass with that Dusk Till Dawn reference. These wholly original movies, these are the ones that need to be celebrated by industry trades and not shot down and undercut with these ridiculous narratives. So I just wanted to give a little context on that. But I also want to add more to add. But Michael, what was your question?
Well, I have a theory why people respond this way, particularly white people, journalists. And like, I think that it's a discussion. I don't know quite how to get into it without like kind of stepping into some waters, but there's capital R racism and there's lowercase racism.
Right.
Capital R racism is, I don't like that a black guy is getting his due. I'm going to knock him down. I don't like black people. That's just straight up capital R racism.
Right.
But I think lowercase R racism is, had a vampire movie come out and it had been about a bunch of people in the suburbs having a barbecue over 4th of July and vampires invaded their suburban barbecue and went crazy, but the entire neighborhood came together like a neighborhood watch and killed the vampires, and it made the money that it made. People be like, wow, that was really good for a vampire movie. But when people see a movie that is about blackness and the Klan and the South, and there's cotton picking, and like just there's a whole list of both visual and contextual things in this movie. And I think that certain people, whether they're realizing it or not, have a reaction that goes, it did good, but I don't know if people are going to come out for this.
Right.
I don't know that middle America goes to see this movie. Like, I think that there is just a belief, and it's kind of tied to the belief that Hollywood has that China and other markets don't want to see black films. Like, there are just certain things that are just like, oh, I mean, like Sinners did really good, but like some heavy stuff there. I mean, you know, there's like, you got the Klan. Like, I don't know. This is just, I thought this was gonna be a fun vampire movie. And I just think that there's that, like, do you think that there's something to that? Like, do you think that's what's happening, or do you think it's something more nefarious or whatever?
I think there is something. What's the convenient term they came up with? Unconscious racism. Yeah, I think there is some of that filters through in some of the coverage of a film like this, and I think it's just so unapologetically what it is, and it's also a commentary on culture as being assimilated by a dominant white culture, and how white culture will suck the value out of a culture in order to essentially co-opt it and then dismiss it or kill it, and the dangers of assimilation and all of that. So there's a lot here that's covered, and maybe there's a reaction from some journalists, reaction from some people who find it like a little abrasive or a little aggressive. And listen, let's be real. Like, we're in a world now where DEI is a negative term. These offices are being shut down. Opportunities are being, now we had an executive order yesterday where universities are going to be, their accreditation is now going to be questioned if they practiced any DEI practices. And so there seems to be this undercurrent. And the irony is that this is happening at a Warner Brothers studio. Like, David Zaslav is so in the bag for Trump. It's ironic that one of his films that's so about blackness is the one that's getting this kind of reaction. But again, I go back to the fact that there are white creators who are coming out in support of this movie, pushing back on these narratives. And I think that's super important in a situation like this. And you also have to put things in context. Warner Brothers has been burning bridges since COVID started with how they treat their filmmakers. So Ryan Coogler had this all over the town. Nobody wanted to do the deal that he wanted until Warner Brothers, because they are desperate to reestablish connections with filmmakers. Abdi and DeLuca giving all that money to Paul Thomas Anderson, giving all that money to Maggie Gyllenhaal. They were willing to make this deal because they want to show filmmakers that Warner Brothers is a place you can come to make your movies. They lost Christopher Nolan to Universal, who went off and made $1 billion on Oppenheimer. That's $1 billion that were not in Warner Brothers' pocket. So I think there's a lot around this movie. But I will say quietly, I bet Ryan Coogler's sitting back going, this is good publicity for me. People are going to come see my movie now out of curiosity, and I hope that happens as well. So that's my roundabout answer to your question.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. I think that's true for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Shane?
I mean, I think Vogel kind of nailed it on the head. I mean, I think there are instances where a person of color has a degree of success that is commensurate or higher with one of their white fellows, and there is an instinct for some journalists to qualify that. Well, like, yeah, it did do that, but remember this, but remember this, but remember this. Right. And again, I think it is that subconscious, unconscious, lowercase r racism that Vogel brought up already. Again, the fact that the theatrical experience is waning. The fact that an original film got people back in theaters, this is cause for celebration. This is like, hey, we're not going down without a fight. And the folks that are supposed to be advocating for the success of the theatrical experience are some of the ones that are being like, well, yeah, it did okay, but, and it's again, it's very disheartening to see when we are in our industry is in such a state right now that we need all the victories we can get. And for my money, this was a victory.
But look, I mean, I think there's sign for hope too. I mean, like, we do talk about how, and I do think a lot of the upset about Coogler's deal and everything is because everyone's stressed out about a lot of things in Hollywood. But Warner Brothers just had a massive chicken jockey and live chickens in the theater aside. Like they had a massive hit with Minecraft. It got a demographic that usually is not going to theaters into theaters.
Yeah.
Sinners had, we'll see how it does. I think Shannon's right. I think it is going to have legs, but Sinners had a really solid opening for a movie that is about all the things that we've been talking about. Yeah. And I went to go see that theater and it was absolutely packed and people were having a blast. All the early buzz from Thunderbolts. This is the most positive buzz that we've had for a Marvel movie in a long time. And I think that people are genuinely interested in going to see that. And we're getting into a July that's giving us a Jurassic Park movie, a Superman movie, and a Fantastic Four movie. So I think there's a lot of reasons to sort of go, I think we're coming to the point where people do want to go back to the movies, but we'll have to see.
Not according to Ted Sarandos this morning, who said
I saw
saving Hollywood. So
of course he's going to say that. They would love it if every movie theater collapsed.
Except the ones they want to own. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, there's a lot to, there's obviously a lot more around it as well to dive into. And so, but let us know what your thoughts are, as we stop this to move on to the next topic and down in the comment section, we'll remind you later on as well. But we want to hear what you all think. What do you think's going on behind the scenes? What do you think's motivating this stuff? And what are your thoughts on these issues with the deal? Because I agree with Michael. I don't think this means anything. Hollywood studios dispatch directors, discard actors, discard producers willy-nilly. It's just like sports. Owners will let go of players at any moment for any reason. So if you can work out a deal that helps you work out whatever, get your bag however the hell you can get your bag, and let those histrionic executives go and fly a kite, for God's sakes. Anyway, let us know what you thought about all of it down there in the comments. All right, let's move on, Shannon. We got some trailers to talk about. A little bit lighter fare. Shall we get into it?
We've got trailers. So light, there's only 2 this week. And speaking of Netflix, this week we got our first teaser for the 2nd season of Wednesday. So this is Netflix's most watched show, along with Stranger Things season 4, and then I think Adolescence. But I do believe Wednesday is still the top. This one is bringing back Jenna Ortega as the titular Wednesday. We've got Luis Guzman coming back, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Fred Armisen, and from the statements that have been released, it seems like this one is leaning less into the teen angst romance angle that the first season had a bit of, and more into the horror angle. And based off of this trailer, it seems like that is correct. I mean, the amount of dark, bloody tears that Jenna Ortega was shedding in this, it was alarming. It happened more than once. And in a 90-second clip, something happens more than once. It's like, okay, so this is going to be a thing. I love the look of it. I love the look of this show. This show is so much fun to see. And knowing that it's coming in 2 parts, the second part will be at the beginning of September and just in time for spooky season. I'm thrilled to see this show come back, even though some of the casting I'm still a little like meh on, but we'll throw it over to Mikey first. What did you think of our first look at the 2nd season of Wednesday?
It just made me happy, honestly. I mean, I remember when the first Wednesday came out, when season 1 came out, like I was excited, but also unsure. Like, yes, Tim Burton is a big name, but Tim Burton is a name that has lost a lot of luster over the past few years. Jenna Ortega was kind of new to the scene. I'm kind of partial to the Addams Family Values era movies with Christina Ricci as Wednesday. I was like, I don't know that they're really going to do this. And then I believe I watched all of season 1 in one day. I think I put it on in the morning and was like, check this out. And I just burned through that thing. I loved it. And it's really become like a cultural touch point. I mean, my niece dressed up as Wednesday Addams for Halloween a couple years ago. And as I go into pitch meetings and I talk to toy companies, animation studios, it's really opened up this whole world of spooky for girls. Like spooky, scary monster stuff used to be boys, and girls were dress up and princesses in this. And Wednesday is so popular that it's really opened up this whole new demographic, along with Monster High and other things that are like, oh, you can do spooky for girls. And so I get why it's Netflix's most successful thing. And I think they're kind of smart to lean more into the horror of it. I thought the trailer looked like a blast. It looks like we're going to get to see a little bit more of the Addams family in this season, which I'm super down for. Yeah. And, the other thing that I thought of, and it's just really funny that it comes up, is in season 1, I remember when the articles were coming out, and I remember that there was some stuff where Jenna Ortega had really put her foot down about a couple things, and Wednesday wouldn't do this. And there was a lot of articles that came out that were a little bit negative towards Jenna Ortega, a little bit like, who the fuck are you to tell XYZ? And you've seen Jenna Ortega's star really just take off like a rocket post Wednesday with everything she's done. And so stepping into it now, you're like, oh no, like she's owning this character. I think she's really, even for me, taken the reins from Christina Ricci, and you're like, no, you are Wednesday Addams now. Like, this is your thing, and she should just run with it, because if the quality of this matches up with the quality of season 1, which based on the trailer it looks like it does, I think I'm going to watch the whole thing in one day.
Johnny, we're recording on a Thursday, but are you down for Wednesday?
I am. I actually am. I did a trailer reaction for this one because I recently watched the season a few weeks ago and just enjoyed the hell out of it. I really did like it. I loved Jenna Ortega in the series, but I loved the chemistry she had with Enid. I loved the stuff that went on with Tyler. Like, it was really interesting. And Gwendolyn Christie was great in it. But as you said, Michael, really smartly here, they listened to the fans who were like, we need more of the Addams family. Yes, it's Wednesday, but we'd like more of the Addams family. And this teaser trailer seems to indicate that we will be seeing more, because certainly there was drama around Wednesday's dad, around Gomez there, with did he kill the person? Not, oh, it was because of Morticia and all of it. So there was a lot of drama around the family in the first season, but we didn't see them as much. And this feels like it's going to be much more active. And I think the line where Morticia says, you've never wanted to return to school. So that lets you see that she's Wednesday's now committed to like what's going on here. And of course, what was alluded to at the end of the last season was there's something bigger here happening. So what is the bigger story that this season is going to tell us? Steve Buscemi sliding in to take the place of Gwendolyn Christie. I kind of like that idea. What can Steve Buscemi do in an environment like this? You've got some strong actors coming in, and Billy Piper to be part of this thing as well. Noah Taylor's in here. Christopher Lloyd is going to be guest starring. Tandu Newton is going to be in this. Joanna Lumley, Haley Joel Osment once he gets out of jail, Heather Matarazzo, and even Jonas Suotamo, who is our Chewbacca, is going to be a part of this. So it looks like it's got a great lineup of actors. But this trailer, I love the energy. I love the vibe. It seems, older. It seems a little more mature. The doll scene was hilarious. What is the bigger story? What's this phoenix with the ashes or the bird on fire? What is the story that's being told? And how is this related to Jericho? Because that was a big part of the last season. So how are they going to make this about the even maybe larger story of Jericho? How far does it stretch out? So to me, this is great. I can't wait to see the season. And I know it's broken up into 2 parts, but I can't wait to see it when it comes out.
Yeah, this series is it's a lot of fun. And the role of a teen Wednesday growing up, Jenna Ortega playing a detective and the guys of Wednesday Addams, that's something that can keep going as long as Jenna Ortega wants to do it. And the Fred Armisen episode of season 1 is still one of my favorites. Fred Armisen as Uncle Fester, who we get a brief glimpse in the teaser. But the first part of Wednesday season 2 drops on August 5th. The second part will be in September. And that brings us to our next trailer, one that I know these two gentlemen are really excited to talk about. We get our first look at Predator Badlands. This is from writer-director Dan Trachtenberg, following up on his work in Prey. This one, we get, it seems like a Predator as the protagonist, a young heroic Predator. I mean, we do see Elle Fanning in this. This just has all the vibes of 80s sci-fi badassery, 80s sci-fi vibes with 2025 effects, and I think the results speak for themselves. Again, Prey kind of, came out, shot out like a cannon. No one was expecting this to be as good as it was, and knowing that Dan Trachtenberg has become sort of the steward of the Predator franchise in modern day, it seems like it's in really good hands. So, Johnny, I'll throw it over to you first. What did you think of our first look at Predator Badlands?
10 years from now, I hope that Dan Trachtenberg and Fede Alvarez have revitalized both of those respective franchises, Alien and Predator, because I want to see that AVP stuff. And is there maybe an illusion in this trailer? Maybe. But I loved this teaser trailer. Again, I did my reaction yesterday, and I was losing my damn mind because these images that they're showing were so epic and just amazing in scale. Dan Trachtenberg was given more money, and you see it on the screen there in these images. And I like the story that's being told here when you have the character that Elle Fanning is playing. And look, in her eyes, that's the Wayland Corporation. So is she playing a droid like Ash, like Bishop? Is she playing that, an android there? And is she going on with the Predator to help him as he's been cast out of his clan to get back into his clan? What is this massive creature they're fighting that we get previewed at the end of the trailer? But it's really the scope of this thing that is amazing. It's massive. Someone mentioned in one of my reaction videos, they said, Frank, it reminded them of 1980s Frank Frazetta. And I was like, 100%. Yes, this is what I like. And even the Viking imagery of these guys, like the Norse Viking imagery here of some of the costumes were phenomenal. So I couldn't believe how much I was excited to see this. And clearly Prey was shot to be streamed. This is shot for IMAX and a massive consumption in the theater. So I hope it's a great one. I really am looking forward to it.
Now, Mikey, if the only place that was screening Predator Badlands was in the middle of some hostile territory and the only way to get there was by helicopter, would you get to Chapa?
Oh my God.
It's a fair question. Fair question.
You take a long way around to get there sometimes, but that was
it's the scenic route.
that was the most casual stroll to get to a punchline I've ever witnessed in my life.
Wow.
But speaking of taking a long time, I don't know what John is talking about 10 years from now. Like Fede Alvarez and Dan Trachtenberg have revitalized the franchise, and based on this trailer, we're way closer to an AVP movie than we need a decade to be. That it's not just an illusion. Like this movie's about the Weyland-Yutani Corporation.
Seems
like Elle Fanning. First of all, I believe that I heard, and I might be wrong, and you guys might know that Elle Fanning was playing twins in this movie.
And I have not heard that. Okay.
Based on the trailer, so then obviously, given the eye moment, Elle Fanning is playing a Weyland-Yutani Aliens universe synthetic.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, it not just looks like, she has the fucking logo in her eyeballs. So she is. But then a little bit later, when she has that line of "you're fighting something you can't kill," she has a purple streak in her hair. And I'm wondering, is that two synthetics? Is it a synthetic and a human? So like, I think there's kind of more going on there than we think. Also, when she, like, they do a good bit of editing where she says that line, she goes, "you're fighting something you can't kill." And then it cuts to that big fucking hulking mamma jamma.
Yeah.
Predator can kill that thing. I'm not worried about it. I think when she says "you're fighting something you can't kill," this is my guess, she's talking about the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Like even when that giant monster crashes into the foreground, you see the ruins of some kind of vehicle that has the Weyland-Yutani Corporation on it. And we also have that shot later on where you see a bunch of people with blasters or pulse rifles that look just like the pulse rifles they had in Alien Romulus. So look, Weyland-Yutani Corporation is the ultimate bad guy of the Aliens universe. Also the bad guy in AVP, the bad one that none of us really like and don't want to talk about. But the fact that Weyland-Yutani is all over this trailer makes me believe that we're way closer to these two franchises coming together in a major way with two people that really seem to get the franchises than we think we might be. All that being said, like, so obviously that gets me excited. I do, see a Predator being the good guy is the first time. Well, it kind of happened in that AVP movie, but like Predators are not necessarily evil. Predators are hunters. Predators have a very specific and different. They're like Klingons if Klingons were even worse than Klingons. Like Predators just have their honor system and do what they do. And so a Predator kind of becoming a good guy, I'm into. It's happened in comics. It's happened in this. And I do think that if you go back and look at the very original Dark Horse Aliens versus Predator story, I think there's some similarities there that they might pull into this movie. So I'm really excited about what it's going to be. Everything you said about Prey, Prey kind of nailed it. This movie looks like it nails it. That Killer of Killers animated thing that's coming on Hulu also looks like it nails it. It's just, and we've said this about Alien Romulus. We said it now, like, for someone who grew up loving these franchises, even loving the franchises when the movies weren't great, to see them both under the Disney Fox banner really sort of take off. I mean, also don't forget we have Alien Earth coming out. Like we've got a ton of Alien stuff. We've got a ton of this. And Fede Alvarez was interviewed recently and he was asked about an AVP movie. And he had a really interesting answer where he was like, I think the best way to do an AVP movie is not to say it's an AVP movie. Like, don't tell people it's an AVP movie. Go see a movie, think it's going to be a Predator movie, and then, oh shit, there's a xenomorph. Or you go see an Alien movie and you go, oh fuck, that's a Predator. And the way he said it, and knowing that he's working on a follow-up to Romulus and that Badlands has the Weyland-Yutani Corporation all over it, I kind of have a feeling that that's the road we're going. Whether it's at the end of this movie and all of a sudden, oh fuck, it's a xenomorph, or in the next follow-up to Romulus, all of a sudden a Predator shows up, I think that's all on the table right now.
Yeah.
Well, this November.
Hold on. Before you jump into it, Shannon, before you finish, I got to ask you both a question. Is this an Independence Day alien skull? A lot of people
100%. It's 100%. It is
speculating. So now we're even crossing over an Independence Day alien skull, and that looks like a T-Rex on the right there from Jurassic Park. So this is very interesting to throw these skulls in here as an opening shot. And one more thing, Dan Trachtenberg came out today and said this teaser only scratched the surface of what's going to be in this movie. So
I think it's gonna be huge. Bringing in the Weyland-Yutani Corporation in a major way, I think, opens up the possibilities. This is gonna be a whole thing. But to your point about the Independence Day skull, that's where Aliens versus Predator started. Like when Predator 2 came out, for all the reasons that Predator 2 is not a great movie, when Danny Glover goes into that Predator ship at the end and sees a very similar trophy section of the ship, the xenomorph skull was just thrown in there and people lost their goddamn minds. And that was a direct line to Aliens versus Predator becoming an entire thing. And you know Dan Trachtenberg likes that stuff because the gun that's in Prey is the gun that the Predators give Danny Glover at the end of Predator 2 as well. So he's very well aware of all of the ins and outs of the Predator franchise. So in the same way that xenomorph head in Predator 2 was a big kickoff into kind of the things we're talking about right now, seeing that Independence Day skull and knowing that Independence Day is a Fox movie, the possibilities of where all of this is going could be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I will say that T-Rex, that is not a Jurassic Park T-Rex. But if you look through the catalog of 20th Century Fox films, at some point they will have had a T-Rex. Predator Badlands comes out November 7th this year.
Put it on the calendars. All right, let's get into this review here. The spoiler review, spoiler review for Andor Season 2, episodes 1 through 3. We had quite a lot going on in these first 3 episodes here. We had Andor stealing a TIE fighter and then get involved in this very mini civil war happening on what will be Yavin 4. We had Bix and Brasso and Willman there on Mineral there, being grain farmers, having the Empire come and question them. We had the tease of what is coming for Gorman here from Orson Krennic and the narratives they want to spin in order to turn that planet into quote-unquote terrorists or harboring terrorists. Where have I heard that before? And then we had one of the most interesting Star Wars romances ever in Deidre and Cyril, with Deidre smacking back Cyril's mom, Edie, there in one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a Star Wars show. So a lot to get into. What is there more?
And Mon Mothma?
And Mon Mothma.
We're gonna leave the icon out of this. What are you doing?
Sorry about that. I put the picture earlier, and I meant to get back to it. Yes, and Mon Mothma there holding the wedding for her daughter Leda, and dealing with Luthenrael and Kayla there, and Clea there rather, and what goes on there with Vel and Cinta and her childhood friend Tay, and the betrayal that comes from that particular thing. So there was a lot of storylines here. Because we have a little amount of time, let's just jump into each storyline. So, Michael, your thoughts on the Andor storyline, the opening here with stealing the TIE fighter, convincing Naya, a young recruit, to turn a blind eye to him taking the TIE fighter, fighting his way out of it, landing on that plane, landing on the Yavin 4, will be Yavin 4, and then dealing with those dudes and getting the hell out of there. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because a lot of people, if you look online and you're talking about like what people are loving and not loving, this storyline and Cassian sort of getting stuck on what we find out is Yavin 4 with these kind of yahoos. They're kind of like, they felt like that wasn't the most exciting, but I'll get to that in a minute. I will say that 5 minutes into this, Cassian talking to the young woman about her doing what she's doing and her saying she's scared and him kind of giving her that speech from the get, I was like, fuck, man, this is the best. This is the best Star Wars we got in a long time. Like, because it takes all of what it means to be a rebel, what it means to stand up to an oppressive system, what it means to have a system like the Empire in place that's crushing everybody down. And it made it all real. Not only was she super scared about what she was doing, she kind of was like, I had fun here. I like this place. I made friends. Like, it just made the whole thing feel real. And to follow that up immediately by him getting on a TIE fighter that he had no idea how to drive and fucking just have epic disaster and really giving you a lot of the fun of Star Wars, it was like this crazy 1-2 punch that just really set you up to go, they've got this.
Yeah.
Like the 1-2 punch of like this very real grounded scene followed by a lot of comedy with a TIE fighter into a great TIE fighter chase as he takes off. It was like, oh, we're in good hands. I'm not even worried. I wasn't that worried. I thought it was going to be good. But then when he gets to this planet, I thought this was really interesting. What I also think was great about all of this, and I'm really curious to see where the season goes, is rebellions are hard.
Yes.
Like when we get to A New Hope and Luke joins the rebellion and they're perfectly organized and they're about to attack the Death Star, and then you get to Hoth and they really seem like they got shit figured out. Like the rebellion is there because it's cool, but you don't get into how hard it is. And every one of these storylines sort of hits it in a different way. But what we're seeing here is the rebellion is disorganized as fuck.
Yeah.
Like these people who are also ostensibly rebels, there's no organization. They don't know who Cassian is. And even beyond that, they're fighting each other. And I was reading a lot of stuff online and reading a couple articles, and like somebody pointed out that, you know, this kind of is really representative of real life. I mean, I'll probably say this a lot over the course of our reviews, but if you look at the Democratic Party right now, which is a very large umbrella with lots of different factions, with lots of different opinions and lots of different needs and lots of different things that they want to fight for, and you look at the infighting, you can look at what happens on Yavin 4 with this group of people and go, this is what happens. There's scarcity. There's not enough food to go around. They're afraid. They don't know what's going on. They're confused. And so rather than all joining together and fighting the people they should fight, they spend the entire 3 episodes trying to kill each other at cross purposes. Like they're trying to like pull the TIE fighter over to shoot the other ship that has the only pilot who can fight the thing. So like, it was just really interesting to me. Probably not the most interesting thing out of 3 episodes, but watching these people just be horrible. You're like, this is what we've got to work with. Like this is the rebellion. And that combined with some of the aspects of Mon Mothma's story and some of the aspects that happen with Bix and Brazos, like you really start to see like the impossibility of the idea of this rebellion, the idea of what Luthen's trying to put together. You're like, how can you even imagine that you guys are going to fight against this force? And so I thought that's what was really interesting about this Cassian storyline.
Yeah. What do you think? There's great points, Michael. What do you think, Shannon, about how they essentially opened this season and what it led to in this battle between these two warring groups of people on a planet?
Well, even though this is a tale that takes place, you know, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I think the writing of Tony Gilroy makes everything feel human. That there is more nuance to Empire bad, Rebels good. Like that technician that Cassian is talking to at the beginning, the conflict that she kind of feels within herself, just kind of like, I know that ultimately this is the right thing to do. All of the sacrifice that I've having to make for something that I enjoyed. Like you're telling, you know, I'm hearing these stories. I'm not experiencing them. My life's okay. but it just makes it super, super compelling. And then to go right into the sequence of him trying to steal that TIE fighter and all of that comedy, it doesn't feel it. They're not going for laughs. We are reacting organically because it was not the model he was trained to fly.
Right.
And so everything that happens, none of it is, they are not going for a joke. They are presenting things as they would happen. And it happens to be incredibly funny. And part of it is because of Diego Luna, like watching his reactions to, oh God, what, bang, it goes backwards. Super, super exciting. Everything on Yavin 4. I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I think taking this storyline and stretching it over 3 episodes with other storylines, there can be a little bit of feeling like we're running in place. But I do think when you look at what Vogel was saying, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, there is more nuance to that. And it's just like, look, we agree that this guy is bad, but we're not necessarily going to agree on how we solve this issue. Before we get to them, I got to take care of you. And so you see sort of again, as Vogel said, the impossibility of this task. I mean, it seems insurmountable. So again, not the most dynamic material out of all the storylines, but as the way it ends up, watching the way that Cassian is trying every trick in the book, trying to get out of there. Ultimately, I thought episode 3, there was just payoff. And to get to that payoff, you have to establish some things.
Right. And that's what I enjoyed about his storyline, maybe more than you guys did, and which I totally understand. I know people didn't think this storyline was much, but I liked that this was the way they opened the season, because this is a more confident Cassian. This is a more relaxed, mature Cassian. This isn't the guy we saw at the end of season 1. He's had a year of seasoning. And so the way he's talking to her, I put the line down, you'll never feel right unless you're doing what you can to stop them. You're coming home to yourself. Because as you pointed out, Michael, she not only does she say that she has a good time here, it's her job, and she's going to lose her job. How the hell is she going to make money? And this is how an empire, a dictatorship, gets you into a position. It gets you to make money, and then you're sitting there and you're comfortable making money. So if you rebel, you're going to lose all this money. You lose your ability to feed yourself, pay your rent, pay your utilities. There's all these real life things, as Shannon was pointing out, the real life writing. There's real life consequences to this battle that people are taking on, and there's no guarantee that they're going to win. And the sacrifices they're being asked to make when they're not even the integral part of this whole thing is a massive ask. So I love that as an opening scene. And then, yes, we get into the TIE fighter, and all of that is funny and it's funny in a way of like, it's good to see your hero a little nervous, a little unsettled, not sure. It makes it feel more connectable. But he still gets away. And when he lands on the planet, I know you said Democrat, but we've seen Republican MAGAs fighting each other nowadays as well. So there's it's basically people not being able to get in line and focus on the bigger picture, caught up in the minutia and the smaller issues to battle over. This is what it highlights. And they're battling over legitimate things like food, and we were supposed to get this, and this hasn't arrived. And they eventually just turn on each other because they're caught up in the ego of who should be leading. And I love that he turned it into a 5-hand thing to show how childish it fucking was that they were fighting over this dumb stuff. And they had Andor, and because they're fighting over it and not seeing the big picture, Andor gets away. And even more so, Andor convincing everybody, trying to turn them on each other, shows a maturity and a calmness from the Andor we saw in season 1, who would have been lost of who would have been caught up in his own, I'm terrible, I can't do this thing. So it's great.
I think you make a really good point. And I think people are overlooking what you just said, which is if you look at the end of season 1, Cassian is still just sort of dealing with his own personal shit. He's dealing with Marva. He's dealing with I'm going to rescue Bix. And he knows that Luthen has had Cintas there to try and kill him, and there's a whole thing going on. But it's the end of season 1 is just him going in and be like, you can either kill me or you can take me, I'll join.
Right.
But he's not done anything yet. So this sort of does allow us to sort of see everything you said. I didn't actually think about it that way, but I think you're right. Like that you really see he's cool, he's calm, he's collected, he's waiting for his moment. And I think that's really, really smart, because even as people are like, oh, this wasn't my favorite storyline, this wasn't this, it just sort of you just sort of get where he's at in his journey of being part of this rebellion.
Yeah.
And you can already see that he's far above these idiots who are just, all battling each other for no reason.
Right. Which used to be him, which could have
Which
been
used to
him
be
in
him.
the past. Yeah, which I think was great as well. Well, you mentioned Bix. Let's move on to that storyline on Mino Rao. Here we have Brasso, Bix, and Willman, who are now apparently grain farmers. We see that Bix is suffering from PTSD, having these dreams about nightmares rather of Dr. Gorst. Brasso and Willman have found ladies in their lives here. B2 is there as well, and he's waiting like a little puppy dog waiting for waiting for Andor to come back. But the Empire shows up to conduct a census, and there are two really harrowing scenes with Bix and an Imperial officer who we know is going to take advantage of her at some point. And after that first scene with them, and tries to rape her, sexually assault her. It's the first time anyone has ever said the word rape in a Star Wars live action or any version of Star Wars here, which I think is really interesting to have in this show here. And then we see Brasso getting caught, Brasso running away on the speeder, and sadly Brasso is killed. And we see that Andor shows up, having escaped from that plant from Yavin 4, and shoots a bunch of the stormtroopers, but not before Brasso is killed. And we see, as Michael, you said, the overwhelming cost here of fighting the Empire. He has lost his friend. And I love that the show doesn't give you some kind of death scene like, fight for us all. There's nothing like that. The reality is, in a war like this, in a battle like this, people will die, your friends will die, and you won't get a chance to have any kind of closure or anything like this. It's the horrible act of it. And eventually he gets Willman and Bix onto the flight, and they get out of there after Bix has killed the Imperial officer who was trying to take advantage of her. So Shannon, your thoughts on everything that went down on Mino Rao and the emotional impact of what we saw there?
I mean, everything that's happened with Bix, it's hard to watch. I mean, you see the scene where the Imperial officer is kind of being like, oh, you have a husband. Like you know what is happening right off the bat, and it is uncomfortable to see. And like I had read that something was coming because I did not watch these as soon as they came out. So I was kind of like, oh no, they're going to show an attempted assault, an attempted sexual assault. And watching that scene, the battle back and forth, I mean, it's really difficult to watch. And we had some of this at the end of season 1 when obviously Dedra's a villain, but yes, Dedra is very she's very magnetic to watch. But that moment in Ferrix where the crowd gets a hold of her, it's like, oh man, this is really difficult to watch. And I think it's very brave of Gilroy and company to put this in a Star Wars show. I mean, again, the human element that Tony Gilroy and his team are injecting into this, I mean, it can't be denied. I mean, there is a visceral reaction to watching this and seeing that when she tells the guy waiting outside that this guy tried to rape me, there was no, oh, come on out. I mean, it didn't matter. Like that's an Imperial officer you just murdered. Right. So again, very, very difficult to watch. I mean, I love Brasso. I'm sorry. It's a bummer that that guy is gone, because as a character, again, he was just someone that we related to. Again, the whole world, it just feels real. That moment where he gets on the speeder and he's going through that grain, that tall yellow grass. Watching the wind in his hair, even watching it as how they shot it, I'm like, I don't know what the combination of effects they used to pull this off, but this feels like a guy on a speeder. And just watching moment to moment at how they're having to live and the tension that goes along with that. They never get a moment to relax. Especially Bix in that first episode where we see, she wakes up from that nightmare. So again, this was a very compelling storyline that kept me glued to the TV.
Yeah. What do you think, Michael, of how this all went down here on Mino Rao?
Well, and again, this is where it's going to be an interesting discussion all season long, because season 1 of Andor was great. Season 2, they're just going for it.
Yep.
This isn't an allusion to what's going on right now in our country and the world and our government. It just straight up says it. Like, they are referred to as undocumented.
Yep.
Like, it is straight up what it is. And before we get to the sexual assault thing, everything that Imperial officer says to Bix is the issue that's happening right now in the world, which is the Empire needs grain and the grain farmers need workers. And they are going to use the undocumented workers. But the Empire says you can't have undocumented workers. But if they don't let the farmers have the undocumented workers, they don't get the grain, which they need. So they will turn the other way sometimes. But when they don't want to turn the other way, you're fucked. And what I just said is it applies to Star Wars and the Empire, but that's literally the issue that's happening right now in our country. In Florida, they're talking about passing a law to let high school kids work longer hours because they don't have enough people to work because they got rid of a bunch of undocumented workers. Like, so what they're talking about here, regardless of your politics on it, and I think Tony Gilroy's politics are probably pretty clear, but regardless of your politics, like, this is what they're exploring. And to take Star Wars and to take the Empire and the Rebellion and all these things and just infuse it with reality, both reality that we are currently dealing with and pulling aspects of history, the history of fascism, dictators, the rise and fall of empires, and putting it all in here and making it real makes it terrifying. Yeah. And so that just made this entire story, like, it would have worked regardless. But like, when you're like, oh, we're undocumented, they're looking for us, fuck, what do we do? And then to have the guy who hired them said, don't worry, I'll help you, until it gets uncomfortable for him. And then he's like, sorry, we got the grain, you guys are out. It was just really real. And that leads directly to the sexual assault of Bix, which a lot of people are talking about online a lot. And look, it's an interesting conversation. Like, sexual assault in fictional stories and fictional universes has been a constant topic of discussion. When Game of Thrones did similar things, there was a lot of controversy. And as someone who's never been sexually assaulted, I don't have as strong an opinion as others. So I would always be willing to listen to others' opinions. To me, the difference here versus Game of Thrones, in Game of Thrones, I don't think that they were making a statement on power in Westeros. They were using Ramsay Bolton as a horrible, disgusting person to do something to make things really difficult for a character. And a lot of people felt that was uncalled for and unnecessary. Now, there's people that are saying this is uncalled for and unnecessary too. But what Tony Gilroy is doing is illustrating how little the Empire cares about any of these people and how any of this is allowed and overlooked. As Shannon said, the fact that the guy, when Bix says he raped me, he tried to rape me, the guy didn't care. And again, it makes the Empire so much more real and so much scarier and so much worse than, oh, love those bad guys. You know, it's like when you go ride Rise of the Resistance and all of the cast members are just giving you shit because they're Empire, because they're First Order. You're like, oh, these rapscallions. This is real shit. So I found it very, very affecting. And not only the reality of the attempted sexual assault, but even the reality, somebody said this and it made me laugh, the reality of that dude getting fucked up and hit in the head. Yeah. Like, we just watched a bunch of episodes of Daredevil Born Again where people are getting concussed every 3 seconds and hopping up and fighting. Yeah, that's true. And this guy got jacked in the head and could barely walk. And when he stumbled out of the trailer and kind of wobbled and then fell and cracked his head again and like flipped over, I was like, fuck, that is real. Yeah. So that the whole thing about all of this is like, this was really like, they are really going for it. And that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. But I felt it was all really powerful and in service of the bigger story that they're trying to tell. The only other thing I want to say is to the people online that are saying Darth Vader would never stand for sexual assault. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I get Anakin Skywalker and his journey and why he turned to the dark side, but Darth Vader has done a lot of shit in his life, and I don't think he's like jumping up to stand up for women. That's all I'm going to say on that front.
This is the dumbest thing. Yeah, I'm gonna retweet it. I already composed my tweet on this. So stupid. I mean, you mean the guy that killed all the younglings, the guy that stood by while the emperor killed billions of men, women, and children, cut off his son's own hand, and threatened to turn his daughter to the dark side, is gonna draw the line at sexual assault? Go fuck yourself. Grow up. And the thing is, this storyline is my storyline, and by that I mean this is Star Wars for real. And I was so blown away. And I'm not going to, like, somebody called it a milestone on. It's not a milestone. There is a bravery, not a bravery in showing sexual assault, because we've seen this in numerous shows, as you mentioned, Michael, Game of Thrones, other places. It's within the Star Wars universe to have the guts to show you what the Empire would really be like in a real world situation, cutting communication off from the planet to other people so nothing can be reported about what's happening. Going even further back to what you were saying, Mike, about these undocumented workers. Why are they undocumented workers? Because they're refugees fleeing a planet that has been attacked by the Empire. And that's the situation there. Just like a lot of refugees leave certain countries to come here because the countries that are there are being forced to do certain things or are doing certain things with the help of the country you are fleeing to. So it's these kinds of things. It's a much more complex situation here. But as you said, I love that they tapped into it. I love that they made it very obvious what was going on there and what was about to happen. But as much as they're creating a communal atmosphere, Shannon said they don't have a moment of tension. You're right. Even while they're trying to have food, there's still a bit of tension there with Kellen showing up saying, hey, I can get you down to the 800 section. If you guys go and fix this, maybe we can save you. So there is no moment to rest because the Empire is constantly around them. And even the class conversation is happening with Willman and that girl saying, well, her parents don't like me because I'm a farmer or whatever. So you see that going on as well. And that is what this is a class conversation. And then you get to the imperial officer, and that's an extension of the empire, extension of any dictatorship, is that they want people who are evil to enforce their dictatorship. And the way these people go about on the daily business, because it's such a massive dictatorship, they are able to go into these places and take advantage and rape and sexually assault and beat up and destroy people in service of the empire and indulge their deepest, most darkest instincts. And you're right. You're not seeing this at Galaxy's Edge. This is the real fucking shit that would happen. And I love this. And I think it's pissing off the right kind of Star Wars fans for me. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it was great to show it, not because I want to see any sexual assault, but it's to make it clear to you what a dictatorship can lead to and can be like in Star Wars. So
can we talk about the real issue with this storyline, though?
Sure. Go ahead.
Did they leave B2 on that planet?
I've seen the whole season, so I cannot say one thing.
All right, I don't want you to say, but I'm just going to say this. If
B2 was left on the planet, yes, at the end that we think at the end of this episode. So, yeah.
They left B2 with a responsible party who is going to show B2 such a great time that B2 will not even realize how long Cassian's been gone.
Look, B2 Emo is not my favorite droid in the Star Wars universe. It's really R2 is still my ride or die, and Chopper is a close second. Yeah. But that little puppy dog droid loves Cassian so goddamn much, and I would die for that droid.
Fair point.
Well, and one thing that you would mention, Johnny, I know we're running low on time, but talking about how the Empire wants a certain individual enforcing their rules, they want the population afraid.
Yes,
because people that are scared are compliant, and that is what the Death Star ultimately was about. Like, we used this once, we're not going to have to use it again.
Right. It's like if you deport a bunch of people who cry out about deportation are going to be quiet about it because they don't want to be deported either. It's almost like that. It's a great point you bring up, Shannon. Another thing I do want to assure people, because I've seen the whole season, the big stuff is being laid. The groundwork's being laid for that. She is going to be a part of the entire season, a predominant part of the entire season. And I think I just want to make sure people understand. So, because I see some people going like, are they just using her to put her through these things? That's really unfair for a female character. All right. There's more coming, and there's reason.
I appreciate what you're saying. You're walking on eggshells. Stop talking.
I know. That's all I'm saying. All right. That's all I'm saying.
Stop.
I'm just happy that Adria Arjona got more to do this season than she got last season, because I love
honestly, her. To that point, I know I want to talk about the other stuff too, but like honestly, she did more in these 3 episodes, and she was great. I really loved her in season 1, but in these 3 episodes, she brought so much to those scenes. Like she really did knock it out of the park.
Agreed. Well, let's speak about someone else who knocked it out of the park. That's Genevieve O'Reilly. Let's move on to this storyline here. Mon Mothma, we are on Trandrilla on the Mothma estate. Her daughter Leda is getting married. It looks all beautiful, and people are commenting what a wonderful home it is. But there are cracks below the surface when Luthen shows up with Clea to the surprise of Mon Mothma. Vel is there. Her cousin is there to monitor what has happened. Tay Kolma, played by the great Ben Miles from Coupling, her childhood friend who we saw last season, has apparently fallen on hard times over this year since the end of the last season and wants to get paid back for the help he gave her. He is getting desperate, and this is starting to worry Mon Mothma that he might turn to the Empire to fill his coffers back up here. But then Luthen calls Cinta, who leaps into action, and we imagine Tay will be killed, but Vel and Cinta have a moment as well. But also Leda rejects Mon Mothma's overtures to have her step away from the wedding, maybe not have to do it. And ironically, it's Perrin who delivers a speech about how pain will find you, but that is all the more reason why we must reach for joy. And we end with Mon Mothma drinking and just trying to dance her depression away. And so it's such an interesting, and that's the end of the first 3 episodes, but this is the end of this particular storyline as well. So we're going to get to the Dedra and Cyril storyline next. Michael, your thoughts on the Mon Mothma stuff and what happened here on the Trandrilla estate?
I love everything about Mon Mothma. I love everything. As John said, like that was his storyline. Like I recognize who I am as a person and what my strengths are as a human being. And if I was a part of a rebellion, I know where I would be.
Sure. Yes.
And this is where I would be. Like this is where I would be. Like this is how I'm going to help the rebellion. So I
want to help him out in a fancy way.
Well, but like what I love, because I did see some people talking about this that they didn't like. Like I saw a tweet that I didn't respond to because I was like, I'm not diving into this. But they were like, I really don't like what they've done with Mon Mothma. She was such a powerful person in the rebellion, and here she's just dancing as people are dying and all of this stuff is happening, and it's like thoughts and prayers. And I'm like, no, this is what the show is about. Yeah. Like what Mon Mothma does and makes the sacrifices in her own way, but like you don't get the rebellion without the Mon Mothmas of the world.
Yep.
Like you don't. There's a reason that she ends up as the face of the rebellion. And I think we're going to see a lot of those things this season, particularly with the Gorman massacre coming up. But this whole idea that you have Cassian with the dregs of the rebellion who can't even get their shit together.
Yeah.
And then you see what's going on with Bix and Brasso and the way that the Empire is treating people and scaring people. And then you go to Chandrila in the core worlds where everything is beautiful and the rich are still super rich. Yeah. And the Empire might be doing horrible stuff on the Outer Rim, but they're leaving the rich people alone until the Gorman massacre. But we'll get to that in a couple weeks. But like, so seeing this like sort of opulence happening is a stark contrast to what's going on in other parts of the galaxy. So I think it's awesome to see that. But then to have all of this intrigue happening while all of this opulence is going on, with Luthen showing up and him being so gregarious, but then finding Mon Mothma in corners and being like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, and then Tay coming in and just basically very casually being like, watch Genevieve O'Reilly's face when he says rebels out loud.
Yeah.
Like you don't do, like everything is so tense, and what she is doing is such a huge, and she's already made this massive sacrifice, basically selling her daughter off to make sure that her money can get laundered and no one sees that she's funding massive pieces of the rebellion. And then you have this guy come up and be like, hey, you got to pay me some money. I'm feeling unloved. And just watching her deal with all of that while her daughter has gone full Chandrila MAGA and is like, I'm all into arranged marriage, Mom. Fuck you. I wish you were drunk. Like, she's just got it happening on all sides, and watching her navigate all this. And then even Perrin's speech, which you mentioned, like when he talks about how no matter what you do, pain finds you. And you got Genevieve, you got Mon Mothma sitting there being like, yeah, I'm just at this wedding, minding my own business. My best friend from childhood comes up and tries to extort me. But then Perrin turns to this whole thing, be like, but you know what? no matter how bad it gets, we find joy, we find love, we celebrate. Well, that's great when you're on Chandrila and you've got a fuck ton of money.
That's great.
Go tell that to Brasso and Bix and see how they feel about it. And so the fact that you have all of these levels going on, I just thought was so amazing. And then on top of all of that, you have that fucking DJ droid come out and drop the sickest beat the Star Wars galaxy has ever seen. And I saw this online and I retweeted it because it made me laugh so hard. So they kept yelling Niamos, which is the name of that beach planet that Cassian had been on when he stole all that money in season 1, which somebody was like, that's basically the equivalent of everyone in Chandrila at a party just yelling Miami over and over again. They're like, Miami. Or it's like that Will Smith song.
Yeah. Or a beast. Right, yeah.
But yeah, so I love this part of the rebellion story. I love watching how the people that are privileged that could turn the other eye, and most of the people in this wedding are turning the other eye, but watching how Mon Mothma is navigating all this, putting herself out there. She's not on the front lines. She's not in the mud with those grunts on Yavin 4, but she's making these other sacrifices. And without her as the public face, I don't know that the rebellion takes off. So I'm curious to see where that story goes. And best line, I think one of my favorite lines of all three episodes was when Luthen was like, when she realized that Tay was a wild card, and Luthen was like, you know what the price is.
Yeah.
You can't be exposed. And she goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, how nice for you.
How nice for you. Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man. But and again, this is like a rebellion doesn't happen without Mon Mothma, but a rebellion doesn't happen without Luthen either. Just watching all these different pieces at play and how none of them should really work. It really makes you realize how this all happened on a wing and a prayer. So I loved this storyline.
And people need to be patient. I know you want that Mon Mothma, blah, 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 but that Mon Mothma had to be built. That had to be built. So wait.
If you've watched Rebels and you've watched other Star Wars things, I don't know what all goes into the Gorman massacre, but I do know what she does after the Gorman massacre. And so I'm like, y'all just chill the fuck out. I know my Star Wars history.
I also know what she does after Gorman massacre. All right, Shannon, your thoughts on this storyline? What do you think it would happen here on Chandrila? Are you one of the EDM dancers at the end?
I love that these levitating droids they don't only inject truth serum into prisoners. they take over the music duties at a party.
They inject beat.
To the Luthen of it all. Yeah. Whenever, we see it in season 1 multiple times, whenever he puts on that toupee, that hairpiece, we see him slipping into character. You see this big shit-eating grin, giant robe. Oh, good to see you, my friend. Embrace me. He's in character 90% of this storyline. But those moments where the real Luthen comes out, it is chilling. And, we talk about the sacrifices that all the characters have to make. And he touched upon this in the first season. He's sacrificing his soul for this. When you see the real Luthen come out, you see a set of predator's eyes, a set of dead eyes who is looking at Tay and saying, you are an obstacle. I have to get rid of you. And it doesn't matter by any means. You are in my way. You need to be removed. And I thought that line was fantastic. That how nice for you. Just super, super compelling. Yeah. And Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, the moment where she knows there's nothing else she can do. I have essentially sold my daughter. My childhood friend, who I thought was one of the closest people in the galaxy to me, he's probably going to be dead in a couple hours. All I can do right now in this moment, because I can't appear. All I can do is get drunk and dance. So you see her, just throwing back these shots, dancing like no one's watching. No, I thought it was super, super compelling. And even though Perrin does seem sort of like a bit of a shitheel from the first season, at least in this, it's kind of like, oh, maybe he's not all bad. Is he a great husband? Probably not. Is he a bit of a man of leisure? Yeah. He's not without a little bit of wisdom when he talked about pain will find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the I forget the character's name that is the head boss, the crime boss's son that she is marrying. I forget his
Skolden, Davo Skolden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Skolden and Luthen having a connection, I think, is really interesting to showcase that even more in this scene. And with Perrin, right? They have their little back and forth. So just fascinating to see how Luthen moves in all of these circles and the way he works that damn room. With
when he worked that room and that young kid, was it Skull? Actually, was it Skolden's son? Where he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm stationed here, but they're moving us," and he was like, "Oh, where are they moving you?" I'm like, getting that info, baby.
It was great. All right, let's get into the final stuff and let's talk about the Empire. First, we have Orson Krennic, as I mentioned, talking to us about the Gorman stuff, and we see them all sitting around, these officers in this clandestine meeting, talking about how they're going to manipulate the narratives about Gorman and claim that they're housing terrorists and that these people want to destroy the Empire. And it's really uncomfortable to see those two guys from Fox. Never mind. Those two guys jump up and manufacture their narratives about how they're going to twist the reality of what's going on in Gorman. And we also hear that what they really want is this thing underneath this special rock or the special ore. It's for an energy thing. It's all of this stuff. That what the real reason they're doing all of this is for a natural resource that they know the Gormans are not going to surrender easily. And on the other side, we have Dedra and Cyril in this very interesting relationship. So Shannon, your thoughts on all this stuff did I go to you first on the last one? No. Yeah, go ahead, Shannon. Your thoughts on this.
The return of Ben Mendelsohn, outstanding. I mean, Orson Krennic is one of the greatest villains that the Disney era of Star Wars has introduced. Basically talking about they are going to strip mine this planet to where it is essentially uninhabitable. And it's like, yeah, that's what we got to do. His interaction with Dedra, fantastic, where he's just like, I got it, you're smart, you think you're difficult to read, you are here for a reason, what do you think? Like watching someone out Dedra was a lot of fun. And her interaction with Partagaz as well, the older major, where he's like, look, Gorman is a gift, like you took a pretty big black eye on Ferrix, so take this and run with it. So everything with Krennic, I was, a super, super big fan of. Looking at Coruscant as they're outside the ISB, I love shots like that. I mean, one, that's a digital shot. That most of that stuff doesn't exist, but it looks so real. Like it's like you can feel the dampness on the sidewalk as they're walking up to this, to this structure. Watching the most awkward dinner with Edie, with one, knowing that Cyril and Dedra are a couple, and like sort of imperial domestic bliss. It's really, really weird. But even inside their happy, loving home, like it is stark, it is bare. There is it is a cold, cold home. But watching the way that the three of them interact, how Cyril is just on his heels whenever his mother is around. Like the moment he came home with groceries and he was just like, oh, I thought if I did this, we would maybe not have to. And she's like, nope, we're doing it. And to see how off center he gets when his mom is around, and how Dedra basically is kind of playing this slow game of like, I'm going to let you come in and be inappropriate in my home. I'm going to watch you embarrass my partner. I'm going to get as much information as I need to get. Then I'm going to drop the hammer on you. Even the moment after Cyril excuses himself from the table and you see him laying on his bed like a child,
like a teenager. Yeah.
It is the saddest sight, but he doesn't have to witness what Dedra does to Edie when Edie says, oh, well, that's quite a mouthful. It's like, I'm not done. It was, again, the lead up is like, come on, let's go. And when we finally get to that payoff, all of the lead up was worth it, because again, that is just I think that's the most satisfying meal we've seen in the Star Wars universe since Han and Leia and 3PO tried to have drinks in Cloud City.
All right, Mike, what are your thoughts on what happened here with the Empire, with Orson and with your Didra and Cyril?
I'll do it in reverse because I want to talk about the dinner first. Dedra and Cyril are fascinating to me because in a show, and again, this is what makes this show amazing. In a show, and we've talked about it, and I'll talk about it in a minute with that meeting, like this shows how bad and horrible and harrowing and terrifying the Empire actually is. Yeah. The fact that we have two people who are part of the Empire that we kind of like.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that we think they're good guys or we're rooting for them, but like the way this entire thing plays out, like particularly in this dinner scene, we're rooting against Edie and we are rooting for Cyril and Dedra. Like when Dedra dresses her down, we're like, fuck yeah, get her. You're like, oh wait, you were just at the meeting about the Gorman massacre. You're a bad guy. And the fact that they've created these characters and put them together in the weirdest relationship that Star Wars has ever seen, and Star Wars has seen some weird relationships. Like, this is a fascinating storyline. Like, I just find Dedra Cyril, I'm actually really curious. Like, I don't really know where we go with Cyril. I think he's hilarious, and I do think he gave us maybe what will become one of the most used Star Wars gifts of all time. Like, how are you feeling? Do you want to come out tonight? And I'm just going to send you a picture of Cyril on the bed, and you're going to be like, okay, I guess Vogel's staying in tonight. Like, but I don't really know where his story goes. I know John does, but like, I don't want him to tell me.
No, I'm not
Dedra,
going to say anything.
But Dedra particularly, like having this character that we've watched rise up through the ISB in season 1, and now be basically right under Krennic and right at the center of this Gorman massacre, which is this huge piece of the Star Wars universe. And me kind of not hating her, but also being like, where are we going? Like, I don't know. Like, I just find her a fascinating character. So loved everything about this storyline, even though I'm not quite clear on where any of it's going. Like, that dinner was just, to Shannon's point, it was just chef's kiss. It was just perfect. And the performances of all three was like fascinating. The other scene, the Krennic meeting scene, is scary as fuck because it's too real. Like the Department of Enlightenment, or what was it they were actually called?
Yeah.
The Ministry of Enlightenment.
Ministry of Enlightenment. Yeah.
Nazi Germany had a Ministry of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment. Like, that's a real thing. That's not a made up Star Wars-y thing. Like, that is actually real. And the way that meeting took place, all of them sitting in a room, super confidential, super classified, and him being like, hey, here's this thing we got to do. And they're like eating cakes as they're discussing ways to do it. That's how the Nazis planned the Holocaust. like that is very, it's not like we are evil and we're going to do it. It's like, okay, well, we're going to need trains and we're going to build these camps. And then how are we going to do that? Oh, you know what? We'll have this. Like, the casualness, the casual nature of them discussing what they were going to do, it's like creepy as fuck. And the fact that it is not that far removed from reality. Like, had they all been twisting their mustaches and, you know, been on Mustafar and there was lava behind them, cool. This was not that. This was, again, very real. With Orson Krennic, I disagree with Shannon a little bit in that, like, I thought Ben Mendelsohn did a great job in Rogue One. I didn't really care about Orson Krennic. He was a perfectly good character. No. He was a perfectly good character to move the plot along for me in Rogue One. But I didn't come out of Rogue One and go, Orson Krennic is one of the greatest villains in Star Wars. That being said, the way that Orson Krennic has been used in the Thrawn novels, here, in different places, they've really taken Orson Krennic and turned him into a pretty major player in the rise of the Empire leading up to the destruction of the Death Star. And so I think what they've done with him here, and again, I think it makes his performance in Rogue One even better, because I think he did a great job. I just don't think that character was like, I was like, oh, you're on Moff Tarkin's level. But now Orson Krennic has kind of taken that role, and I think it's fascinating. And I love that even in this super top secret confidential meeting, he says, this is for the Emperor's energy project.
Yeah.
Like, it's for the Death Star, but he's not like, this is the Emperor's energy project to bring absolute power to the Empire. And you're like, okay. So the fact that even this is kept so far under wraps.
Yeah.
Again, it just makes the entire road to the Death Star and the road to Rogue One, which is what we're basically building here, that much cooler and more interesting, even as it makes it super creepy and harrowing and scary.
Yeah, Michael, I think what you hit on right at the end is a thing. Like everyone's like, "Oh God, the Death Star." Remember that had been the rallying or the cry for, especially when it popped up again in the sequel series. People are like, "Oh, another."
Well, that
Death
was
Star
stupid.
type. Well, but I'm just saying,
Star Killer Base is stupid.
right? But this is the way to do it and add layers to it and flesh it out and make it, as you said, topical and relatable and feel creepily way too real when you're watching it, right? And not only that, opening that meeting with playing that film strip that could have come out of the 1970s in a classroom any of us were in, or 1980s with that film. All that was missing was boop, and the next slide popping up. That's the only thing that was
Welcome
missing.
to Gorman.
Exactly. And so seeing all of that, it's like they're even showing these people how proud people are to be Gorman, to be Gore rather, to be on Gorman. And this is what you're showing them. So you have an understanding of what this planet is, because you're about to possibly destroy it or destroy what's going on there with everybody. So it's just so creepy in its way. And yes, the conversation with Dedra and him, I think, is so interesting for character beats. The fact that she's trying to play like, well, I don't like to talk unless I know everything about it. And he's like, stop bullshitting me. Tell me.
Yeah.
You had an idea before you walked through the door. And then she's the one that walks away from him. That's really interesting. As the lower ranked officer, she walks away from him to end the conversation. I don't think that happens to Krennic very often. So I like that that showed she has a self-composition. And one of the reasons we liked her, I think, from last season is she is a woman in a man's world. As much as she may be evil, a lot of these dudes are incompetent doing the job above her. And honestly, if she got in charge at the Empire, she probably would have won the war. I don't think we would have had Star Wars at all, honestly. Yeah. But because she didn't, or she doesn't, rather, because we know what happens, obviously, in the Star Wars movies, it's an interesting thing to follow. I think it's as gutsy as it is to show sexual assault in this way in Star Wars. I think it's also gutsy to show how can I say this? A man like Cyril, to show a guy who was cuckolded in this way by his mother, and then by his wife. And his wife is trying to do right by him by telling the mom, if you make him anxious even a little bit, you're going to get no contact with him. I thought that was genius. Like, she's saying to her, you have fucked this man up so bad. It works for me, but I am going to try to elevate him because I know what he can be, but I'm still going to be the HBIC. I just want to make it clear. And so I love that back and forth happens. And Cyril, as you said, Shannon, lying on the thing, as soon as she speaks up, he jumps up, adjusts his hair, and walks back over. And so there's the gutsiness in showing a man like this in Star Wars, because those anti-woke pro-male YouTube channels are going to lose their damn minds. But I think it's so important to show that as a different approach to male characters in Star Wars, because there's enough of the badass male characters in Star Wars. So yeah, all of that genius stuff for sure. All right, any final words before we wrap up this review? We've gone almost an hour and a half on this show.
Yeah, I just gotta say, I think that as much as I know you guys would prefer that this was week to week so that we kind of stretched it out and got to enjoy Andor for longer, Tuesday night was a goddamn joy. Honestly, getting a full Star Wars experience in one evening, knowing that I'm sitting down and I order my food and I pour my little whiskey diet, and I know that I have 3 full, almost hour-long episodes to go through. Like, it filled me with so much happiness that I'm super down for this model of streaming, as opposed to having to do like 3 weeks in a row to get to where we got. Like, I'm super into this, and I cannot wait to see what happens next.
He had his Chandrilla dinner, his whiskey there, and his food. Shannon, any final thoughts here?
The thing that makes this show so enjoyable is the acting and the writing. And that's what made the first season stand out so much as well. And so the fact that we're going to have another 3 weeks of this with just, heavy grown-up writing and acting and Star Wars, I'm elated.
Yeah, the next 3 are the longest 3 of the season. right? They're each almost an hour. So you're gonna get a lot of Star Wars content when this thing drops next Tuesday. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review. Thank you all so much for watching it here. Don't forget, we dropped our reviews for Sinners and our reviews for the recent episode of The Last of Us after we wiped our tears after that episode. We have those reviews up for you all to watch as well. Shannon, what do we have to tell these wonderful people here?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram, it's _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Hi, Geek.
Go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What do you think of Ryan Coogler's deal? Is he ruining Hollywood? Are you excited for Wednesday? What do you think about Predators? And most importantly, how do you feel about Andor? Is B2 Emo okay? And are you ready to drop the beat for Niamos? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and some comments so we open the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right. Thank you all so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies! Hey!